Ready, Sally? Good. It's 5:15. We'll call this regular meeting to order. I'd like to recognize everybody in the audience tonight and thank you for coming. Would you please stand and recite the pledge with me? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Moving on to school board norms. Steve, would you like to read those?
Decisions will be based on the board's strategic plan, its mission, and what's best for students. The board will act as stewards of tax dollars. Board members will complete foundation work to be prepared for meetings. Meetings will be efficient. All perspectives will be voiced and heard, and all board members will maintain a professional decorum.
Thanks, Steve. We have no public communications, any conflicts of interest to declare. Hearing none, we'll move into consent agenda. A motion to approve. Motion by Brenda, seconded by Greg. Any discussion? Hearing none, assuming roll call vote, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Moving into our regular meeting, we have recognition tonight for fall activities. Diane, would you like to read the names? And when your name is read, if you'd like to come forward and make a line on the steps, because we'll take a picture and we have a pin to present to you. So, Diane?
We have a lot of outstanding, accomplished students in the room tonight. And as a school board, we want you to know that this is a very brief recognition, but we realize that this is the culmination of years of hard work. So I wish we could have a big party for you, but I hope that this is something that you will remember. As your name is called, just come forward, line up along the stairs. We'll take a picture and you'll have that for your scrapbook. And once again, I tell you, thank you very much for your hard work over the last few years. The first students I'll call were selected for the Northwest Musical Festival: Sarah Azure, Jordan Kylheim, Isaiah Gray, Micah Hoke, Carissa Kraft, Malika Kramlich, Caroline Kaiser, Dawson Mee, Sadie Meisner, Abby Olson, Megan Ray, Sierra Saylor, Katie Schmitz, J.P. Signoni, Katie Succo, Brandon Retherley, Ashlyn Weiss. The following students were selected for Regional ACDA in Chicago: Megan Ray, Anika Tweeten, Maya Nordstrom. The following students were selected for the Northwest Honor Festival: in concert band, Jamie George, Allie Struble, Presley Washburn, Lindsay Caker, Madeline Dempsey Reinertz, Jonathan Listool, Benjamin Pfeiffer, Joseph Casti, Joseph Leininger, Andrew Pfeiffer, and Nadia Nekolicki. Symphonic Band, Kendra Cleghorn, Brett Hertz, Maya Nordstrom, Harley McQueen. WDA Sax Percussion Festival Star Ratings: in Tentacles Percussion Ensemble, Alyssa Ames, Luca Flan, Nia Johnson, Connor Maloney, Nadia Nedalicki, Julia Shirley, Paul Vandell, Zebedee Willer. In Synergy Percussion Ensemble, Luca Flan, Anika Tweeten, Elliot Wiley, Zebedee Willer. Percussion Ensemble, Alyssa Ames, Brooks Carroll, Caden Eslick, Catherine Hedelvedwick, sorry about that, Catherine, Madison Jansen, Nia Johnson, Nadia Nekolicki, Chandler Rott, Jedrick Truax, Anika Tweeten.
want to take pictures?
Our athletic football, Jared Haar, first team All-State. Zach Petrick, second team All-State. Jared Kallenbach, second team All-State. Aaron Mack, second team All-State. For boys soccer, we have Austin Schaefer, All-State. Chase Jennison, All-Conference. For cross country, we have Megan Ford, All-Conference, All-State. For volleyball, we have state runners-up, Megan Gaffney, Powerade Senior Athlete of the Year, All-Conference, All-State, All-Tournament. Hannah Sheely, All-Conference, All-State, All-Tournament. Michaela Kurtz, All-Conference. Courtney Peterson, All-Conference, All-State, All-Tournament. For girls swim and dive, we have Shay Bao, All-Conference. Girls golf, we have Sarah Azure, All-Conference, All-State, and Caitlin Maloney, All-State.
And then we have under recognition also, we have the Milken Educator Award recognition for Mr. Adam Gaylor. Adam, if you'd like to come forward. On Tuesday, November 21st, 2017, Mr. Adam Gaylor was formally announced as one of the 30 educators across the country as a member of the Milken Educator Class of 2017. The Milken Educator Awards are given to an ascending educator that has demonstrated outstanding leadership and innovative qualities. Mr. Gaylor is the third Jamestown Public School staff, including Lynette Ryan, including currently a Title I teacher at Louis L'Amour, and Larry Eukstead is a retired JHS principal. The board would like to extend the congratulations to Mr. Gaylor and offer him a framed picture to commemorate the importance of this award to him, Jamestown High School, and the district. So.
Rob, get in the picture.
Yeah, thank you, and I'll continue to trust Rob, even though he made me plan my own surprise party. It takes a lot of skill. Oh, sure. Yeah.
Yeah, we didn't know either, Adam.
It was a well-kept institutional secret.
Then since we do have you up, if you want to just go into your educational competency there and 7 mindsets.
Rob had asked me to provide a little bit of board education on a program that we've implemented this year called 7 Mindsets. And one of the things that I think we should celebrate as a district is that our high school has an advisory program, which many high schools are still trying to figure out how to get that type of program in for students. And although we had, a lot of good things going for us in our homeroom and our advisory, this was a place that we discussed as a site-based team that we felt we wanted to go. And we believe that our advisory is crucial to having at least one adult that each student would say knows them well. And we have lots of awesome programs where adults get to work with students, whether that's in activities or just in the general classroom. But this is really a focus of our advisory program, which is also called our homeroom. So this year we kind of decided to focus on enhancing our relationships and specifically through a curriculum called 7 Mindsets. And I think that this is important because there's a lot of research that talks about the importance of social emotional learning and those discussions. According to the American Institute of Research, they report 5 essential competencies for college readiness. And this, I think they apply to life readiness too, which is important for what we do in schools. But self-awareness, recognizing one's emotions and values as well as one's strengths and limitations, self-managing, managing emotions and behaviors to achieve one's goals, social awareness, which is showing understanding and empathy for others, relationship skills, which is forming positive relationships, working in teams and dealing correctly with conflict, and responsible decision making, making ethical, constructive choices about personal and social behavior. 7 Mindsets is one piece of a continuum of social emotional programs that we do across our school. And it's based on research on what mindsets do the happiest, most successful people have. The mindsets include everything is possible, passion first, we are connected, 100% accountable, attitude of gratitude, live to give, and the time is now. It's designed to remind our students to dream big, to develop empowering relationships, to develop their goals and passions, and to take responsibility for their life. It's designed to help them appreciate what we have and to develop resiliency and to recognize the importance of giving back and to take action towards realizing their own goals. We funded this program with a contribution from the Dakota Medical Foundation, which considers us in their watershed after some convincing. And that was a $4,500 grant to cover half of the year-long subscription for high school and access for the middle school, as well as the initial teacher training. So that covered half of that. And typically, Dakota Medical Foundation, they were responsible for bringing this, in my experience with in West Fargo schools. And the second year is typically a 25% funding of the annual subscription for the program. We've had mostly feedback, I can't say 100% positive feedback from our classrooms, particularly on the video portion of the curriculum. Teachers find they're relevant and highly engaging for leading discussions with our students and for building relationships. We're conscious that no program is the end-all be-all, and we're encouraging our teachers to adapt the lessons as they feel they need to. But it is leading to good discussion and relationship building. One of the things that we've noticed, at least initially, is that we need to do more work on the front end with just team building and discussion and getting students to have equitable conversations so that the status between students doesn't limit somebody from participating in a rich discussion like that. And so we're coming up with strategies to do that. We want all students to feel like they have a voice and to feel comfortable sharing their perspectives. And we've also made the decision to loop our homeroom teachers, meaning that a homeroom teacher that starts in 9th grade will follow that student to 10th grade, 11th grade, and 12th grade, rather than the strategy that we were using before, which was to change them every year. That way we can really develop more cohesive relationships and ensure that we have a commitment to all of our students throughout that continuum of the grades. I spoke with Mr. Stillwell about the middle school, and what they're doing right now is they're engaging their entire staff with a book study of the 7 mindsets to encourage exploration of social and emotional learning and how that might enhance the prime time that they have going on. They also have 2 houses that are currently implementing at the middle school level, and they're in a pilot, and they're finding it to be a beneficial resource as well. Does anyone have any questions about 7 mindsets or its implementation?
Diane?
First, I want to say congratulations, heartfelt, on your award. Several of us were at that surprise presentation, and it was just so wonderful. And I really am happy for you, and certainly you deserve it. So I wanted to ask about the mindset strategy, because you used the term rich discussion within the homeroom is what we're aiming for here. Mm-hmm. And I sort of picture this working well at the middle school level, where students are still a little bit less reticent to step forward and say something. I'm picturing at the high school that there might be trouble getting students to engage. If we all walked up, say, on a cold Tuesday in February, would every homeroom be engaged in this, or what is your buy-in with the staff?
I think, as with anything, it's mixed in terms of people's comfort in leading a discussion like that, and so that's why we've been implementing the equity strategies into some of our job-embedded professional learning, so that people develop more of a sense of comfort of leading those discussions and getting students to discuss in there. If you walked up there on a Tuesday morning, you'd find that we switched to Thursday and Friday, because some of the feedback from the teachers was that it's hard to get a student to come in and have those conversations on a Monday morning, when that, for some of them, is the first thing that they did. And that was some feedback from our teachers that said, we want to move this to Thursday, Friday. We feel like it will benefit our students. I believe that if the middle school starts the conversations, that we can take it to a whole another place at the high school level. Some high schools will take it and make it like a cornerstone component of, which is what they do at Moorhead High School, actually, a cornerstone component of their 9th grade year, and it's a class involved as part of a class that all students take at that level. I believe it's important to have that ongoing conversation, but as the middle school transitions in, we may find other resources that we feel like build on that platform. When you look at the research from they cite a Chicago-based study on social emotional learning, and they talk about the ability to develop mindsets really starts at a much younger age than what we've anticipated. Middle school is a great time to focus on mindsets, and high school is a great level to enact and practice those mindsets that they've learned in middle school as their brains just developmentally. So I think you're onto something there too, but room for growth all around.
Okay, and I just wanted to congratulate you on pushing this forward, making it happen. I think over time it will become embedded, and it'll just be par for the course that we do this, hopefully. And the other thing I wanted to congratulate you on, and your team, or whoever came up with the idea of a homeroom teacher staying with that student all the way through. That's a fantastic idea.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments for Adam? Or none? Okay. Thanks for the information.
Yes, thank you.
And again, congratulations.
Thank you.
Moving on, we have nothing under correspondence. Under reports, student council report, Bailey.
Okay, as I talked about last time, we were getting ready to go to the convention that is held in Bismarck every year. We went, and that was 10th through the 12th, and we had an officer running, the executive board publicity officer, Samara. She's a junior. She ran for Class A representative, which is actually the toughest one to run for because there were 7 contestants and only 1 spot available. She had a good campaign. We were able to spread our ideas of including kids and getting kids who don't normally participate in school, and we spread those ideas that we had to try to help the other schools get their students to participate. And we were able to, from the other students that we were there with, we were able to take back some ideas, not just necessarily about student involvement, but several other things like communication between councils and service projects and things like that, and just making the school overall happier, better place. I think it was Fargo North. They spread out candy before they take their semester exams. So we were thinking that that might be something we can do if we have some extra funds, just to kind of, everyone's kind of like, stressing out in that time of the years. So ease the tension a little bit. But also something that I thought was a great idea, but it'd be a little harder to implement, was a school-wide service project. They take the entire school out for a day and they go into the community. There's several different things that they do. Some of them go out and pick up garbage from parks and other things like that, but I thought that would be a great idea if we could implement that somehow, some way here. And then the overall convention was just a great way to get new learning strategies, or not learning strategies, leading strategies. And then also every year they have the Cleanest Room Award, and this is the 2nd year in a row JHS won that, so that was kind of cool. We get $100 back from that. Just a cool little thing that we got. We could spend it on small things like doing the candy, but there's also, we suggested that we might put it towards water bottle fillers because we have one on the way, but also that seems like a very high demand from the students. They really like that idea. They want some more in the academic wings. But then we had a few other bigger surprises that I'm going to keep secret in case they happen. So, do you have any questions?
Any questions for Bailey, or?
Yep.
Oh, Heidi?
You might have said this, but how many students went to the convention?
We have a total of 25 on the council, but only 23 were able to go because they had some prior commitments.
And just to follow up, I know that you were looking at, end of last year into this year, raising enough funds for everyone to go. Were you able to do that to be able to fund everyone to attend?
Yes, actually, the cost for a convention is around $2,000 to $2,500, depending on just busing and hotel rooms. And we were actually able to fundraise $3,000. So.
And lastly, thank you for coming to share with us.
Absolutely.
Just a quick comment. Bailey's done a great job as student council president this year. They're getting things very well organized, getting a lot of traction with ideas, and even in last year with making things happen. So appreciate his leadership in that, and we can make that school-wide service day project happen. Certainly something I've got experience with. It's a lot of work, but I think he's up to the challenge, and that's actually one of the themes of Live to Give is one of the mindsets. So,
thank you.
Okay. Yep. Thanks, Bailey. Before we go on to our auditor's report, we did have two students come in for recognition. We have Aaron Mack, who was second team All-State. If you guys would like to come forward under football. And then Paul Vendel was in, which one? The Fine Arts WDA percussion, is it, Paul? Yep, percussion, yep. So. Okay, moving on to reports. Auditor's report. Linda, would you like to come forward and...
Hello. Hopefully you have a copy of the audit report.
Yep.
I will try and briefly go through and highlight a few things in the report. Starting on Page 1, go on to page 2, is where we express our opinion on the financial statements. And basically, these financial statements present fairly in all material respects the financial position of Jamestown Public School as of June 30, 2017, and for the year then ended. Starting on page 4, we have the management's discussion and analysis. That is pages 4 through 10. It's the only place that you're going to find comparative information. So if you want the short version, you can read that part. Going on to page 11 is the start of the financial statements. Page 11 and 12 are the government-wide financial statements. This includes all of the assets, including the capital assets of Jamestown Public School, all of the liabilities, including the net pension obligation you will see there. I'll bring to your attention just above the total liability line, the $32,735,066. That is Jamestown School's percentage of the statewide North Dakota PERS and the TFFR pension obligation. And I believe that this is probably about the third year we've had to start accruing that liability. And you'll see what it does to the net position. Your unrestricted portion actually is a negative number. And a fair share of that is due to that liability of $32 million. Going on to page 12, we have the statement of activities. Again, government-wide, full accrual basis of accounting. And you will see in this case that the change in the net position from the previous year was a decrease of $1.7 million from the prior year. Going on to the next set of financial statements, pages 13 through 17, we have the fund basis balance sheet, which you will notice it just includes the current assets, current liabilities, and then the fund balance just being the difference between the assets and liabilities. Page 14 reconciles the statement of net position to the fund balance sheet. It shows you what numbers made up the difference in those reports. On page 15, we have the statement of revenue and expenditures. So you will see on the fund basis of accounting, the overall change in the fund balance was a decrease of $560,000. And then 16 is just explains the reconciliation between those two statements. Going on to page 21, we have the notes to the financial statements. If you want further information of the numbers that are included in here. The first part of it, pretty much boilerplate. I won't spend any time on that. Going on to page 30, there's a little bit more detailed information, explanations of what it makes up some of the different numbers. Bottom of 31, we have the additions to the capital assets over the last year. Going on to page 33, long-term obligations. You will see the change in the bonds and other liabilities of Jamestown School from June 30, 16 to June 30, 17. And if you look again, I'll just bring to your attention the net pension obligation about halfway down the page. Last year that balance is not quite $29.5 million. This year, $32.7 million. And of course, we include all of the footnote disclosure here on the North Dakota TFFR and also for the North Dakota pension. That's starting on page 34 for TFFR and bottom of 38 for the North Dakota Public Employee Retirement System. a lot more information in here. What I will take you to now are the letters in the back. Starting on page 50, our audit is done under the government auditing standards, and we are required to include a letter, which you will see on pages 50 and 51, where we report on internal control over financial reporting. We do not express an opinion, but we will note if there's any material weaknesses or significant deficiencies in the system. And you will note at the bottom of page 50, we have the continuing deficiency with the fact that Jamestown Public School does not prepare its own financial statements. Page 51, with regard to compliance, we didn't have any non-compliance issues. Again, we don't express an opinion on that, but if we had discovered anything, we would note it there. Pages 52 and 53, based on the total dollars of federal funds that Jamestown School receives, we are required to do a single audit under the uniform guidance, and this letter relates to that. The first page with regard to compliance over major federal programs. In this case, we do express an opinion that there were no and Jamestown Public School complied in all material aspects with regard to compliance over major federal programs. And then with regard to internal control over compliance, again, no opinion, but we did not have any material weaknesses or significant deficiencies there. And then on page 54, you'll see the detail of the federal awards over the last year. So that is pretty much the audit report. If there are any questions, if not, you also should have received a copy of the governance letter. And that's where certain things we need to relate to the governing board. And if there are any issues that we need to bring up, and I do have on page 2 non-compliance with state law, and that basically the same compliance from the previous year with coverage of the pledge of assets. The banks only check it once a month, so Sally's going to have to probably make sure she checks it closer to the end of the month to make sure that the coverage is there. And because the state law requires 110% of assets under the control. And we're a little short this year.
Linda, that was the same as last year too, depending on what
Yes.
day we check it.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. And the problem is we have to check compliance as of June 30.
Yep.
And I don't know what date the bank chose. One of them that I talked to, they check like 3 or 4 days after the month end. So that doesn't really help you.
Right.
As far as making sure. And they will tell you it is not their responsibility to make sure you have the coverage.
Yep.
So.
Okay. Any other questions for Linda or? None? Okay. Is there a motion to approve her report or the audit? Motion by Bob, seconded by Diane. Any discussion? Hearing none, assuming roll call vote, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thanks, Linda.
Thank you.
Moving on to number 3, superintendent's report. Rob?
So you have my written report as part of the packet. In my continuing updates on the Every Student Succeeds Act in the plan for North Dakota, I'm focusing for this meeting on our high school assessment. As you likely know, we're required to assess in in North Dakota, we assess grades 3 through 8, and then in grades 11. In grade 11 is our high school assessment. One of the interesting and really enticing things about ESSA is it allowed us to reconsider what that assessment should look like. And as we as a team looked at when we assess, if you've ever had a junior, or if you teach juniors, you know that that junior year is chock full different types of assessments. And the students at that time period feel pretty burdened in terms of taking those assessments. One of the things that we felt would be valuable is reconsidering when we have that high school assessment date. While we considered ninth grade for a period of time, we felt that that would actually better represent what is happening at the middle level and not at the high school level. And so we opted to transition that away from 11th grade into 10th grade. So moving forward, the sophomore year is when that assessment will be given. And it's important for a few different reasons. One is to, again, get a good assessment level of what's happening at the high school level, which is really the purpose. But also it takes that glut away of assessments. And so we can, especially in an accountability assessment, you want to make sure that your students are taking that assessment seriously. And when it is one of many different assessments that happen for juniors, it wasn't always the one that was prioritized, and you get assessment overload. And we felt like our students were having that. We're hoping that that will work a little bit better at the sophomore year. But one of the other aspects of the high school assessment that I wanted to share is the ACT. Now, ESSA did provide the option to provide the ACT as the high school assessment instead of a North Dakota State assessment, and on the surface, that's a very appealing option. Killing two birds with one stone, so to speak. Why take two tests when you can just take one test? And I think at a surface level, that was appealing for those reasons, but I think from a student standpoint, it's appealing. From if you line up all the assessments we provide, ACT is one of the ones that, from a prioritization standpoint, a student takes very seriously. It has teeth, right? What happens with an ACT matters down the road for a student, and so there's that extra layer of being intentional when we're taking the test and taking that assessment. But as you look beyond that surface, and as an administrative team, the things that we talked about, I listed them here. I'll just touch on a few of them, but one of the main reasons is that an ACT is that assessment exists for a purpose, and that's a college entrance, a college placement assessment. It's not an accountability assessment. And so to use a test for a purpose other than what it's intended for is potentially problematic. It would also eliminate that extra test, which we know would be a benefit, but we also feel moving that 10th grade, moving that assessment to 10th grade could help. There are limited opportunities for our students with special needs for the options to help and support them with accommodations. So that would certainly be an issue to overcome with using the ACT. Another important aspect is our state scholarship program requires either an ACT of a certain score or a work keys assessment of a certain score. Work keys exists for students going into the workforce, going into trades. And you can achieve a certain score at the ACT or a certain score in work keys. And the ACT, if that was the main assessment, a student would have to then pay for the work keys assessment on their own. They could still certainly take it, but now they have the option to take one or the other. If it was the accountability, then we would all have to take, then everybody would take the ACT. And so it would eliminate or limit options for those in that area. The proficiency scale that would be set would likely be very high. What they gave us initially was a 23, would likely be proficient. And if you can think of ACT scores and state averages, 23 would be a pretty high score. You would also lose what I think is probably the most important factor is the loss of the growth component. Because if you would be using a different assessment between grades 3 through 8 and then grades 10 or grade 11, you wouldn't have the ability to assess what that growth is if you use a different assessment tool. That's a huge piece of the puzzle. It's not just where you're at proficiency, but are you making growth? And the loss of that, I think, would be a big loss. And it certainly, in my opinion, would not overrule that assessment, that glut of assessments that we provide or that we have at that level, at that high school level. And so ultimately what we decided to do was to maintain the North Dakota State assessment for 10th grade students. I know that there are a handful of schools considering and have maybe made that decision to use the ACT. And originally that was a 3-year commitment, and they since changed that to a 1-year commitment. But ultimately, as a district, I would like to see how that works and how those proficiency scales, how that is working for those districts that opt to go that route before we jump in. Certainly, nothing's ever off the table, but I do think for the reasons that we've outlined or I've outlined, until they can address those issues, it would be hard to support the use of ACT just for the reason of easy. It's easier. It's one less test. I think ultimately the North Dakota State assessment at 10th grade level is going to be better for our students, better for the system. So I know that's kind of a bigger issue, but if we can have, if there's any questions on that before I proceed.
Diane?
The answer may be obvious, but why didn't we consider senior assessment instead of 10th grade?
I think that there's certainly value in considering what happens throughout the year, but I think if you're looking to get the best data in the spring is when we assess. The spring of the senior year might not yield you the best data to make programmatic decisions. I think the spring of junior or sophomore year would be better. Again, for the same reason that it'd be tough to do as a 9th grader, you wouldn't really get an assessment of the high school. But I think the middle level offers you a pretty good oversight. But I think that senior year would be pretty tough in the spring to get accurate data.
Any other questions? Jennifer?
I just had a comment. I appreciate it. It's obvious that you went through the rigors to make this decision, and I appreciate that you took the growth factor. I think if anything came out of ESSA compared to No Child Left Behind was that we weren't able to measure the growth of what the district did, and that's the point, is we want to know this is where you were here and where are we today, what have we done for our students. And so I appreciate you going through the rigors and finding something that will show us growth or not growth, and then we need to change.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. In a nutshell, that is it. It's the growth is the big key. And proficiency is one thing, but being able to show growth for all students is really the big piece of the pie.
Okay.
A few different, in kind of the similar to other, we've done a facility audit, we've done a technology audit that you've heard about, and we are in the process of working through a furniture audit now, thinking of flexible seating and how the furniture we put in classrooms impacts the learning environment. As such, Sally's led a committee of administrators, teachers, to look at potential options to better support 21st century learning in terms of the space that we provide. It's one thing to talk about how we teach, but how we teach needs to be supported by the physical outlay of the classroom. And they've really done an excellent job. They'll actually come here in February in a meeting scheduled for February and give you some examples of how they've changed their classrooms, what their classrooms used to look like, what they look like now, and a little bit of how that's changed in the support of what they want to do teaching in their classroom. We have 2 elementary classrooms that will be the pilot for that initiative, and then a middle school one. And like I said, they'll be here. The teachers will be here to present to you and to show you examples. And then I'm recommending that we take a recess and just go up and check out one of the classrooms here in the middle school that will be changed. In that classroom in particular, I think is an interesting one to look at, because the issue is not just the layout, but the size. So how you can manipulate within that classroom to get what you need with size limitations. But Sally's really done an excellent job, and hard bargaining and negotiating to get really some pretty good deals from vendors to make sure that what we're getting is what we want, and that in the long term that can be something that we look for. And really the ultimate outcome of this is to have a standard. Say this is what we want. We've already done the technology, for example. We say every classroom needs to have these components. And we're moving along those lines, or what we'd like to do is move along those lines and expend our furniture budget in the same way. And saying this is the standard. This is what an elementary classroom is going to look like. This is what a secondary classroom is going to look like. So the needs, the physical outlay of the classroom can match what the instructional needs are for the teachers and the students. I'm excited to see it. It's January 15th, Sally? That's when those classrooms are going to be ready to go. Another audit that we're doing is, I've been in contact with Homeland Security, and they do conduct safety audits. That ranges from really at all levels. You're talking the physical buildings, infrastructure, policy. They come in, cybersecurity, they come in and provide an assessment. It's a free assessment, which superintendents, we always like free assessments. And they do a very comprehensive look at all of this and provide us, again, that 10,000-foot view of from infrastructure, from facilities, and all of that in policy, give us some feedback on how we can improve. Just like our technology audit and all of the other audits that we've done, we know what we do, but there's value in having an expert that isn't here come in and look at what you do through a different lens. And we're looking forward to having a meeting with Homeland Security in January and get that process started. So just wanted to make the board aware of that also. Along the same lines as what we'll be doing with presenting with furniture, we'll also be, I'm suggesting we move our board meeting on February 5th to the high school. I would like to showcase off the makerspace that's been implemented up there, have some students available to show you what that process has been and the end results, or at least the midpoint result of that. And I think it's a great opportunity to see all of those spaces and what they can be. We talk about maker spaces and flexible learning spaces, but sometimes you need that visual of what that really means and what that space really could be. And if you had a chance to look at that when we were up for Mr. Gaylor's event, it's really a neat space and created by students with the help of Mr. Gaylor, run by students with the help of Mr. Gaylor, and really a great opportunity to continue to develop in that area. So I want to show that off as well. Just a few other items. One was strategic planning. Because of the advanced ed review, I would like to suggest that we start to move forward on a strategic plan. This was really the landmark we were waiting for, is the completion of the advanced ed review. I think if we want to be serious about a continuous learning process, that has to be something that is pretty integral to the process of that advanced ed review. And so I guess my process, or my thought on the process would be that from central office we would look into a number of different strategic planning facilitators and bring a finalist to the board to consider, unless you would want to look at it a different way and have a committee that would interview people and or interview facilitators and or bring multiple people to the board. I'm just thinking of in terms of efficiency, but I'm open to whatever the board would like to do. I would just need some direction on what that would be.
Any comments on that, or Heidi?
My thought is if you would check with other school districts of different sizes maybe, and just get a list of vendors that they used and consultants, and what they learned and what was beneficial, and maybe even if there's two candidates that seem fairly close, if there's a real standout, then you could just bring that one toward the board, is what I would think. But it's going to take a little bit of legwork, I think, just calling other districts and making those connections.
Any other? Cedric?
How did we do it last time? And did we see good results from that, or did we like what we did, or no?
I wasn't in on the front end. I was a participant in that, but I wasn't employed here at the time, but I did come for some of those meetings, and I was, of course, a part of the after, and even during that process a little bit, but I wasn't part of the selection. I think the process that was used was really good. We used had about 80 people. from all different stakeholder levels, and I think that's has to be a part of any strategic plan. And I'm sure any facilitator uses a similar process. I don't even know if Marv is still doing strategic planning, but I think I would like to explore maybe a different way. Not that it wasn't a good process, but I'd like to explore something a little more strategic based.
I think to answer your question, Cedric, I think administration at that time brought one or two forward, and we let administration picked finally, yeah. So something like what Heidi was saying. So, any other comments, or should we?
That's the direction I need.
You got the direction?
Yep,
Okay.
I have the direction I need. I'm not going to share a lot about the last two, just my own anecdotal thoughts on the EAP. Recently, the board included in the budget the employee assistance program. Just anecdotally, the people that I have talked to that have in the, whether it be from the staff side or the administrator director side, has been a very wise investment. I think we are getting a lot of great support. And it's well used. I think it's been an excellent addition, and I just wanted to share that. I think that the benefits are far outweighing the very small budget allocation. Just wanted to make you aware. And we also did, in terms of our wellness policy, one of our goals of our committee was to provide some options out for our individual buildings to consider which wellness goals they could or how they could better support wellness in their districts, just providing out, or in their schools, just providing out. I thought Roosevelt did an excellent job. Really, it's an exemplar for what these types of things should look like, and I just wanted to share that so you can check it out on your own. That is all I have, unless there's questions.
Any questions, Rob, or none? Moving on to board education, we have role of counselor. Lisa and Shane, would you like to come forward? And
we have a PowerPoint for you all, so yeah, we just like the visual aid as we go through our presentation. So as Roger said, I'm Shane Ringdahl, and this is Lisa Anderson. And we're going to explain what we do as counselors on a daily basis and talk a little bit about the elementary school counseling program. So on this slide is the mission and vision statement of the counseling program, and this is district-wide. As counselors, we focus on 3 different domains, the academic domain, the career domain, and the personal social domain. We spend most of our time at the elementary level within that personal social domain, helping students build skills and strategies to be successful with peers on a day-to-day basis. Go ahead, Lisa.
So just a little bit of staff introduction here. As you probably figured out, I'm Lisa Anderson. This is Shane Ringdahl. There are 4 elementary school counselors, and we split our time throughout the 5 elementary schools. You can see under our names there, the first school that's listed, that's our base school. So I'm out of Roosevelt, Shane is out of Gusner. And then we, like I said, we split a little bit of time to make sure that all of the schools have at least some coverage throughout the week. I also want to mention that in the state of North Dakota, school counselors are required to have a master's degree, so we all have masters in school counseling. Next, we're going to go into a little bit about the services that we provide as school counselors. First up, the counseling services. We do small groups with our students. Right now, we've got a few different small groups going on throughout the district. A lot of the topics are pretty similar from school to school. I listed a couple of them there for us. Sometimes we have kids who need a little bit of help with their friendship skills. We might have identified a few students who are going through a divorce in their family. Every time we get new students coming into the school, we be sure to recognize them, and if need be, we'll start a new student group just so they can kind of build those relationships with other students within the school. And social skills, that's a big one too. There's a lot of youngsters out there that just need a little extra help with their social skills. We do some individual counseling too. quite a bit of our time is spent on individual counseling, and that's where we'll have one student at a time, meeting in private with us, just working on whatever issues, working on those skills that they need to practice. And then we do some responsive services too, which is kind of addressing those immediate concerns. If someone has a big problem that's kind of interrupting their day, they're having a hard time focusing on school, we kind of work through that with them. We also do some crisis response when the time comes.
A big part of what we do is teaching classroom guidance lessons. So as counselors, we go into every classroom roughly every other week. There's a list up there of the many topics that we teach and touch on with kids. All the lessons that we create are aligned with American School Counseling Association, ASCA, national standards. And we do spend time every summer, 20 hours, getting together as a group and updating and revising our guidance curriculum. So we are meeting the needs of kiddos where they're at.
Like Shane said, we do spend some time planning our guidance lessons out beforehand so that they're ready throughout the school year. But things come up. And we do a lot of supplementary lessons too. If there's a need that arises within just a specific grade or a specific classroom, then we'll cater to that need too.
So we haven't, prior to last year, really been collecting much data. And that was a goal of our group, was to collect data and use that data to make the program stronger. So last school year, in the second semester, we started collecting some data from guidance lessons. So as you can see, we did some polling with the younger grades, older grades, completed exit slips at the end of lessons just for us to get a feel for our students comprehending the main ideas, the main topics of the lessons we're teaching. So with that being said, we have a few numbers to share. So this is a combination from a number of different schools with students reporting that they understand the key concepts. Now this is informal assessment. We're not testing kids. But one thing we've considered as a group is that, this data shows kids reporting that they get the main ideas immediately after the lesson. So as a group, it would be interesting and I think very helpful to throughout the year revisit lessons that were previously taught to find out if students are actually retaining that knowledge. Go ahead.
Oh, thanks. So besides our main counseling duties, our classroom guidance, we do have quite a few non-counseling activities on our plate. All of us elementary school counselors are representatives of the School Attendance Review Board. This year we've been spending some time collecting data to see how effective SARB has been over the years. We are the ones who make the phone calls to parents, to families, so we spend a lot of time communicating with them, just making sure that they're aware of our attendance policies, making sure they're aware of how many absences their student has. And we work with our school to recognize attendance, recognize these kids that do have really good attendance, and these kids that maybe struggle recognizing when they do come to school, making it a big deal. This fall, I should say, we had a booth at the UJ Block Party downtown, which was kind of our way to outreach a little bit into the community. It's fun for kids to see us outside of school so they know we do exist outside of school. Building those relationships, and then we can meet some parents, maybe meet some more family members while we're there, and just to kind of make a presence, make our presence known within the community. As school counselors, we spend a lot of time coordinating services for our families, so if we notice a family that is in need, we can look to different organizations or programs throughout the community and try to hook our families up with that. This year, we have started partnering with the South Central Human Service Center to provide counseling within the schools. So we actually started it at one of our elementaries this year, where some of the counselors from the Human Service Center have come in to the school to provide some more in-depth counseling, a little bit more than we have time or than we are allowed to do. Also, we've had a big focus on relationships within the school. I know that all the staff, the elementary staff, have done relationship mapping activities just to kind of identify those kids that could maybe use a little bit stronger relationship within the school. just to build a little bit more academic success. And we as counselors have taken it a step further. We have the kids do a little bit of relationship mapping activities too, where we ask them to identify which staff members they felt they had a good relationship with or they would go to if they had a problem. So once again, just kind of a way to make sure that our kids have these relationships within the school so that they can be a little bit more successful.
Okay, so in terms of program management, the Jamestown Public Schools Counseling Department has an advisory council. So what the advisory council is a group of stakeholders. Students, there are a few students who are members on the council, a number of parents, teachers, there are a number of school counselors on the council, along with principals and other community members, for example, representatives from the Human Service Center, from Social Services. So the Advisory Council meets twice a year, once in the fall and once in the spring. Updates from the different grade level buildings are sent out prior to the meeting to make our time together as efficient as possible. And during our time together, we talk about what's going well in the counseling department and what are some areas that could be improved. We talk about needs we're seeing, and the whole idea is to get together and communicate as a group to make the counseling program better. In addition to the advisory council, we implemented a staff needs assessment last school year. So this took place in late spring, and this was across all buildings at the elementary level. So we created an assessment that was offered to staff members, teachers, paraprofessionals, principals, secretaries. So participants were asked a number of questions. And so on this slide, as you can see, the top 5 guidance topics were ranked. We asked participants to select the 5 topics they felt students need the most help with, that we should spend more energy and time focusing on. So these are the top 5 topics, and with that knowledge, we have tailored guidance lessons during our time together during curriculum writing to make sure that those areas are being addressed in guidance lessons.
This bar graph goes a little more into the results of our staff needs assessment. Just to help explain this a little bit more, we had 72 people reply to our needs assessment. The first set of bar graphs, the question was, do you feel that counseling services are accessible to all students? So in the blue there, those responded as strongly agree. The yellow was agree, the green was normal, the orange was disagree, and the red was strongly disagree. So the majority of our staff members who replied felt like services were accessible to students. The next question there was, are counseling services accessible to all staff? And our meaning behind that one wasn't counseling services needed for staff members themselves. More so we were trying to target if a staff member feels like they have a problem and they need the help, they need the assistance of a school counselor, how accessible was that? So as you can see, we still rated pretty strongly in the strongly agree and agree categories. The last question was, do you feel that the school counselors have the necessary resources to do their job? And that one is a little more towards the agree and the neutral side of it. This is a breakdown of some more of the ratings of services needed within the schools. I highlighted all of the highest percentages in each category just so that this was a little bit more manageable, a little bit easier to read. But it kind of speaks for itself. A lot of our staff members do feel that we have a strong need for individual counseling and group counseling, information and guidance activities, crisis intervention, responsive services.
So
sorry to interrupt, but if you could go back to that slide, Lisa, that'd be great. So this is the teachers giving you their opinion on what is needed?
Right.
Correct.
Do you keep, I don't know, some sort of record of per year we provided individual counseling to this many students, or we provided group stuff for this many students? Not the classroom piece, but the individual, like crisis management, those things. Do you keep any of that information from year to year to know how much your services are being utilized? Because we have a perception by the teachers that we need more.
Right.
But just, is there numbers, or is it just a perception?
You know, informally, we have kept records of that. I mean, I know from time to time during our meetings, the elementary counselors have talked about, well, last year I had this many individual counseling sessions, or I had this many students on my caseload. I've done this many groups compared to the next year. I've done this many. So, I mean, in an informal way, we've been able to compare that a little bit from year to year.
That is challenging, though, I will say. I'm not saying that it's impossible, but throughout the year, many students are dismissed from counseling services. So those numbers don't stay constant throughout the year. And many individual counseling sessions that we have with students are just drop-in times. We have all of us at the elementary level do schedule a number of students, depending on the need, parent request, on a weekly basis, a bi-weekly basis, but we do have a lot of those drop-ins too. So no, I think it would be great to document that. It's just a bit challenging to figure out the best way to do that.
Thanks for the question.
So with that being said, I'm pleased that we're collecting data. That's been a big step for us. We've been able to identify some of those areas of concern. For us as counselors, many of the results were not surprising, more so reinforcement to us. But we're also exploring the possibility of collecting perception data from students, similarly to the relationship mapping activity. I think it's important for us to figure out and hear from kiddos in terms of what they feel they need help with, what lessons they need to be a part of. So we're exploring some different possibilities, collecting data from kiddos to help make the program stronger also. And we just threw in one quote for the end. We repeat what we don't repair. We thought that was a great statement in relation to counseling. So we're very busy at the elementary level, but we very much enjoy what we do. So with that being said, do you have more questions for us?
Greg?
Yeah, sure, sorry. First of all, I think that's awesome, having the counselors there and what you do for those kids, because I know that there's some troubling things going on out there, and if we did not have that as part of the overall educational process, it would be very devastating. Now, there was a part on here about the resources, but how do you feel as far as the ratio with the amount of kids that you have to work with and the amount of counselors that you have? Do you feel that that's fairly balanced, or what are some of your thoughts?
We have discussed this one, and it varies from year to year. The American School Counseling Association sets aside a ratio of 250 students for every one school counselor. That's how we split our time throughout the district too. And from year to year, it depends. Maybe this year this school will have a little bit higher level of need, and then next year it'll kind of mellow out a little bit. It would be, we appreciate the amount of time that we have, and everyone needs help, right? We all need more time. But
it seems that one of the main concerns in Jamestown from teachers and us as counselors is that there are 4 of us and there are 5 elementary school buildings. That's a challenge, to balance everything and to establish trusting relationships with kids when you're only in a building half a day, a week. just as an example. That's a challenging situation. So with that being said, our numbers are pretty good in terms of the ratio of student to counselor, but with how we're split between buildings, that's a different kind of challenge we see.
Any other questions? I have one under that top 5 topics that you had listed there. Are those, I mean, was it the 5 that were listed there was number 1, the number 1, and then number 2 and 3?
Yes.
So like relationships was the number 1 need that was out there then?
Right.
Okay. Okay. Any other? Greg?
Just kind of tag on, is that what you see? I mean, what do you actually see as kind of being the rising issue out there that you're doing a great job dealing with and resolving?
You know, I think Shane mentioned that the results that we got from that needs assessment, they weren't overly surprising. I feel like it was a lot of reinforcement about what we have been working on, the issues we have been focusing on. It wasn't that surprising that peer relationships was up there at the top.
But at the same time, too, I will say that this is teacher perception. And when I think of peer relationships, I think of friendship issues, tattling. So I can see where that would be on the front of a teacher's, or at the forefront of a teacher's mind, especially at a younger grade level. Yeah, oh my gosh, they're not getting along again and again and again. But like we've talked about, I think it'd be interesting to survey the students and get their feedback. They might have a different reality.
Rob?
Just kind of a follow-up to all of this discussion. We think sometimes of the purpose of school. You know, there's really 3 foundational purposes of school. We think a lot about the academic, of course, which we should. We don't think a lot about the custodial. And our economy is based on this custodial model that we have. And the third is social and emotional. And our counselors play one of the biggest, if not the biggest, role in that development of that whole pillar. And so I think it's really important, as Greg had talked about, the importance of what our counselors do and provide to our students in that time is really important. And so thank you for sharing with us a little bit about what your day looks like. And we know you're busy. You know, just to reinforce too what Shane was saying, you know, with counseling time, we hate to see counselors burning time in a car when they could be working with students, and I think they feel the same way. At some point, if we can address that and try to make that a better system, I know it's tough when we have 2 small elementary schools. You know, that becomes a different issue, but we do have plans for, you know, potentially how that issue could be addressed. But that is the struggle with efficiencies. Efficiencies don't always work. You operate in the buildings that you have, and we do the best we can, and we appreciate all the hard work that you do to build those relationships, even when you're in that building a short period of time. And we know you do a great job, so thank you.
Yep. Thanks for coming. Thanks for the report. So.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Moving on to old business. Any old business? Hearing none, moving into new business. We have nothing under activities, nothing under building and grounds, nothing under curriculum. Moving to finance. General fund balance, general balance sheet. Sally, you have any comments, or is that just there for information?
It is there for your information. If anybody has any questions, I would be happy to answer them.
Any questions? Hearing none, moving on to B. Is there a motion to approve the monthly financials? Motion by Greg, seconded by Bob. Any discussion? Hearing none, assuming roll call vote, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Moving to number 5, personnel. Is there a motion to approve the resignation of Linda Brown, special education strategist at Washington School at the conclusion of the 2017-18 school year? Motion by Brenda, seconded by Steve. Any discussion? Yep, and thanks for all the years of service to us. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Moving into policy and procedures, we're going to go through all the second readings. They'll go from A through H. Is there a motion to approve all the second readings? Motion by Jennifer. Seconded by Greg. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Moving to I, is there a motion to rescind the violent and aggression behavior policy G4 and the subsequent one first reading of the violent and threatening behavior policy ACE? Motion by Bob. Seconded by Jennifer. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Moving to letter J, is there a motion for a first reading of the selection and adoption of instructional materials policy GAAD? Motion by Brenda. Seconded by Cedric. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Moving to letter K, is there a motion for the first reading of the fraud and investigation policy HEBC? Motion by Bob. Seconded by Steve. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Moving to letter L, is there a motion to rescind the audit policy HEBD and have the first reading of the audits HEBD? Motion by Jennifer. Seconded by Cedric. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. There a motion, moving to M, motion to rescind budget policy HA and the first reading of the budget training preparation and adoption policy HAA. Motion by Bob, seconded by Brenda. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Moving to letter N, is there a motion to rescind honorary diplomas for veterans policy F5? Motion by Cedric. Seconded by Greg. Any discussion? Bob?
And I think we've used this policy once in quite a long period of time. But I was wondering what, I don't see anything else replacing it. Maybe I just missed it.
We would still certainly be able to do that if that ever came to pass. It was the recommendation of the School Boards Association. It was an unnecessary policy.
Because it's covered by law.
Yep. Okay. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Moving to letter O, is there a motion to rescind foreign language 8th grade level F4? Motion by Jennifer, seconded by Bob. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Moving to letter P, is there a motion to rescind the registration policy F1? Motion by Cedric. Seconded by Brenda. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Moving to letter Q, is there a motion to rescind class size policy F2 and have the first reading of the class size policy FAAF? Motion by Greg. Seconded by Steve. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Moving to letter R, is there a motion to rescind management and student activities fund policy I-8 and the number 1, the first reading of the management and student activities fund HEAC? Motion by Jennifer. Seconded by Bob. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Moving to letter S, is there a motion for the first reading of Cash in School Buildings Policy, HEBB? Motion by Brenda, seconded by Cedric. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Moving to letter T, is there a motion to rescind of audit HEBD and have the first reading of audits HEBD?
Sorry, it was a double up.
Oh, is L already? Sorry. Okay, sorry. So we'll move to letter U, motion to rescind purchasing card HCAA-1 and have the first reading of the purchasing cards HCAG and the Jamestown Public School District Cardholder Manual HCAG-AR. Motion by Greg, seconded by Jennifer. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thanks, Jennifer, for catching that. Moving to letter V, is there a motion for the first reading of the Fraud Prevention and Investigation Policy, HEBC? Motion by Brenda, seconded by Cedric. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Moving to letter W, is there a motion for the first reading line item transfer authority policy, HEAA? Motion by Bob, seconded by Steve. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Moving to letter X, is there a motion to rescind pre-approved voucher policy HCAA and have the first reading of the purchasing policy HCAA and the subsequent A and B? Motion by Greg, seconded by Jennifer. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Moving to letter Y, is there a motion for the first reading of the bidding requirements and procedures policy HCAB? Motion by Cedric, seconded by Brenda. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Moving to letter Z, is there a motion for the first reading of the disbursement of monies policy HCAE? Motion by Bob, seconded by Steve. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Letter AA, is there a motion to rescind public participation in board meetings policy BCBA and have the first reading of the public participation at board meetings policy BCBA? Motion by Jennifer, seconded by Greg. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Moving to number 7, tuition, is there a motion to approve the tuition agreement for a 7th grade Carrington student to attend Jamestown Public School for the 2017-18 school year? Motion by Brenda, seconded by Cedric. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Moving to number 8, under other, the advanced ed report there is there for your information. You have any comments on that, Rob? Or?
I did. I actually asked Mr. Hegland to attend also, and I thought we would just briefly go over, both him and I could discuss. I have included a board memo attached as well that updates the board. But just to review that, and I know after listening to 25 policy reviews, the last thing you want to do is listen to me talk about a 3-page memo. But I think it is important. This is really one of the key things that happens for us as a district as we have that external review, have those local, sometimes national experts come in and take a hard look at what it is that we do and give us feedback. And I think it's really critically important. And they did a great job when they were here. You can look through that report and you'll see that they interviewed 201 people across the educational stakeholder realm of parents, teachers, board members, district office personnel, everybody, community partners, lots of different people all had a hand. And generally speaking, I think it was spot on, a good representation. One thing I want to make a note, well, really two things I want to make a note of. One, this is a snapshot in time. This is when the review team is here, they are looking at just that small period of time. When they are in an elementary school, they're assessing us on what they see at that time. Now, what they see at that time is likely very representative of what happens, but it may not be. And so there's always that disclaimer of that snapshot in time. And the other thing that I think is important that we understand is that it includes 3 different components. Advanced Ed Continuous Improvement System, Advanced Ed Standards Results, and then what they call the Elliott tool, and that focuses on engagement. And so they break this down. You certainly read through that whole report, but you know, kind of the nuts and bolts is they break things down into 3 different components: powerful practices, opportunities for improvement, and then improvement priorities. You may be more familiar with those as required actions. And in terms of the powerful practice, we were recognized as a district with 2 powerful practices, both being in what they have is the leadership domain. Joe talked about this last time he was here. Leslie Ballard brought it up at the review, the overall review, when she was here also. And that is that the board itself has been recognized as a powerful practice. And they mentioned a few different pieces of evidence for that. The continuous embedded board education, the board meeting assessments, that you take the time to assess the meetings and review that data as appropriate. The board norms, operating within specific guidelines is a powerful practice in itself. And then also, as I mentioned previously, they did review a number of board meetings that were available online. Thank you, Jason, and others. And they assessed on their governance tool. And so based on all of those factors, they recognized the board as a powerful practice. And I think it's important that we recognize and celebrate that, because 5 years ago in the last iteration of the plan, we had 6 required actions, which is a large number. And 3 of those were related to governance. And to move from half of the required actions as governance to them being to the board being recognized as a powerful practice is quite a shift. And so that's quite a bit of work, and appreciate all those efforts to improve governance. And you're recognized for that in this plan. Also, the commitment to continuous improvement was specifically listed as a powerful practice, and really what they're referring to is the fact that our strategic plan, or the bulk of our strategic plan approved in January 2014, was based on the Advanced Ed review itself. In some way or another, the opportunities for improvement, the required actions were all developed into that strategic plan, and they felt that we certainly took that seriously, and I would agree. The one thing I would talk about in terms of powerful practice that isn't listed in here, and I think it's understandable. We do a system level review, so we do that district level review for our school improvement, and so it's understandable that they focus on governance as much as they did. I would have liked personally to have seen the commitment to continuous learning flow through into the teachers and our support staff as well. I think they should be recognized also. The quality of teaching practice, the commitment to all of our staff in the continuous improvement process is critically important. We can talk about initiatives that happen here at the board level or at central office, but without the perspective and inclusion and commitment of staff to enact that, nothing happens. And so I think it's really important that we recognize also others that are impacted and by the decisions that are made in governance and at the central office. In terms of opportunities to improvement, opportunities for improvement, they listed out a few different areas. And really what this means is that they feel like there's additional work that could be done, that work is started, or we're going down that path, but they would like to see us continue down that path and keep working in those areas. Develop, implement, and evaluate the effectiveness of initiatives was one area, and we talked about that in terms of the Advanced Ed Committee being that hub for where decisions go. In the past, we've used kind of disjointed task forces that talk about issues. Now, that's good to get perspective and specialized perspective. It doesn't help you evaluate, though, which is one of the areas that they're suggesting. And it also sometimes ends up having disjointedness. So what happens in one committee doesn't always connect to what happens in the other committees. And so in having that hub area, that hub committee where things go through, we're hoping that will help in that process. I felt that there was a lack of congruence a little bit in the student engagement results and then the Elliott scores. Again, snapshot in time. They're in a classroom at one period, one day within a 5-year span. I do believe that the district has done a lot of work and the staff has done a lot of work in terms of student engagement. I think that's represented in more so in the student engagement results than the Elliott scores. The Elliott is the tool that they use. They walk in a classroom and check some boxes, and that gives us very important data. And I am by no means saying that that isn't an area that we should continue to work on, because it certainly is something we want to do. But I don't believe that there was a lot of congruence between what the Elliott score said and maybe our own anecdotal assessment. The district has significantly committed to what's called improving academic literacy. Those are student engagement and equity strategies. Many staff throughout the district have already engaged in that training over the course of 3 years and have seen really positive results. The teachers and administrators that have gone through IAL training, if you would ask them, most of them that I've talked to have said that it's some of the most beneficial training that they've received as educators. And that, again, is around that idea of student engagement and equity. All students do all things. And also, along those lines, in the 3 years we've implemented the Marzano teacher evaluation system, one of the first that we determined that we wanted to observe and support was DQ5, Design Question 5, which is in the student engagement area. Improvement priorities, what were listed, I really couldn't agree more with what they are. They are data-driven decision-making in all facets. We do a great job of collecting data, and we still need to do a better job in implementing strategies related to that data. I think that there are really excellent pockets where we are seeing that take place. The reality is we have to provide more support and resources for that to happen. The biggest resource, of course, is time. Our teachers already have limited time, and that is certainly an activity that takes a lot of time to do it well. And I think as we look to be creative, as the high school has done with late starts or other types of ways we can get teachers collaborating and talking about data. And of course, we're talking now about, or I'm talking specifically about test data, but that doesn't take into account formative assessments and all the changes we can make with formative assessments to our teaching practice. Moving from the how to the why. I think that's also important. The Advanced Ed team did recognize all of the things that we've done in terms of MTSS, leveled groupings, how we use data there, but again, moving to that next step of how can we use that data better, at a granular level and not just at a system level. In terms of curriculum development, we do have processes for vertical and horizontal articulation, maybe through building levels, grade levels, department level collaboration, but I do think that needs to be more defined, and as we explore how we can embed professional development and professional learning communities, like I said, it really comes down to a lot of resource allocation questions. How can we find time creatively for people to do take on those challenges, because they're tough. That is what I have, and Joe, hopefully I didn't steal any thunder, or if there's anything you want to add, feel free.
Nope, I think that Rob summarized it very well. I think that the part that I was most pleased with was that there were no real surprises in the visitation. It went along with many of the things we'd been talking about. It builds on some of the things that we've been working on. So it's continuous improvement. It's things we can do to improve our district and make things better for our students. So I think it was a very worthwhile time invested by us, and the results showed that we're doing a lot of things well, but there are some things we can do better, and we need to keep moving in that direction.
Okay.
Questions?
Any questions on the report, or none? Okay. Moving on then to school board election. This next summer, we'll have 5 board members coming up for re-election. They end in 2018, and we'll be bringing out more information as far as deadlines and stuff, as far as applying and so on. So, you have any comments on that, Ellie? Or?
No, I was just going to, list the names. You can see them. Heidi Larson, Brenda Remick, Robert Toso, Cedric Trebethick, and Greg Allen are up for re-election in June of 2018. The new forms, the election guidelines, and the dates will be out in January, February. At that time, I will, bring those packets and formally advertise for the, to anybody wanting to run for school board can do that at that time. But this is just like Roger said, the initial, so give you a heads up that these are the board members that are up for re-election.
Okay, thanks, Allie. Moving on to items for future agenda. Any items for future agenda? If there is something that comes up, please let Rob or myself know, and we will get that on the agenda. We have meetings to be scheduled. We have district improvement meeting on Thursday, January 4th at 3:30 in the Thompson Room in the middle school here. We have the Health Insurance Committee meeting Monday, January 8th at 3:30 in the district office conference room. And our next school board meeting is Monday, January 15th at 5:15 here in the Thompson Room. Roman numeral 6 is remember to evaluate the monthly superintendent evaluation, sections 1 and 3. And then also to right-click on the adjournment to assess our meeting. No further business. We will see you next year, and hopefully everybody has a fantastic holiday season. So thank you.